welcome back to Block TV. And even with the craziness facing the world today, the show must go on. And so today joining us is Mike Belshe, CEO of BitGo. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now Mike, in 2013, for those who don't know, you founded BitGo and you pioneered the world's first multi-signature hot wallet for cryptocurrencies. Then in 2018, you launched BitGo Trust, which was an institutional-grade custodial service. And BitGo also was one of the first to offer crypto insurance. Plus, side note, BitGo processes over 20% of all global Bitcoin transactions, which that I was shocked by. Pretty awesome. Clearly, you know institutional traders, you know the Bitcoin game. What is the biggest complaint you hear from institutions and institutional traders when it comes to trading crypto?
Actually, I think the traders are relatively happy. There's a lot of activity going on in the Bitcoin space. It's been growing over the last few years. They trade on volatility. So that part's okay. I think the biggest complaint that all of us have is that, making this usable by the entire world is a long challenge. It's a long-term game. We've been in this since 2013, as you pointed out, and there's a long road to go. Good news, we're making inroads.
Yeah, and speaking of those inroads, you guys recently acquired Lumina. You want to tell me a little bit about why you did that and what it means for BitGo?
Yeah, this is our continued evolution into the financial services space. We started out as a relatively small technology company. That's where my roots come from. Anyone in this space knows that you have to have a pretty deep technological understanding, a pretty deep technical team. So we built a solid foundation to begin with. But with Lumina, we're now kind of up-leveling out of like the low level of a wallet infrastructure into something that's actually bigger. All of our clients have assets held at multiple institutions and multiple places, and they want to reason about them globally. So we're moving out of just the BitGo wallets into something that can work across exchanges, across multiple custodians, and of course with BitGo.
Mm-hmm. And this is all going to be available under kind of one platform or one dashboard where we'll be able to see pretty much all their assets under one roof, to say?
That's right. So all of our clients will be able to access all of their BitGo wallets, just like they always have, through this, as well as being able to move and view and manage and report on assets that they hold anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Now, is this also available for retail traders, or is this mainly focused on institutional investors?
One of the things about BitGo is that we've been institutional from the beginning, and I think that's part of why we're so much bigger than the competitors today, is because we got started early with an institutional focus. Back in 2013, retail was what everybody was talking about. That's where everybody was going. But today we talk a lot more about institutional, and BitGo just got a big head start on that. So it's in our DNA. It's what we do. Retail investors, we do have a few of those, but that's not really our focus. Our focus is institutional.
Mm-hmm. Now, this system or this dashboard is kind of be able to tie in all their assets. How does this work with assets they have under cold storage?
Well, right. So when you have assets in cold storage, you can still view them. You can still manage them. With BitGo, we've been building the ability to trade directly out of cold storage, and we can settle it right there. We started that, a year and a half ago or so. This idea that you have to make a choice between security or usability is a terrible choice to have to make. Everyone should be able to have both all the time. And we enable that by giving you access to liquidity straight from cold storage.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, they're not actually trading that cold storage, their own cold storage asset. You guys they're essentially trading in the meantime the equivalent that's in a hot wallet, and then it's being filled up with that cold storage.
Sometimes people use that. We're the only provider that's got hot storage and cold storage and custodial, non-custodial. So there's a lot of different combinations, but generally, no. Actually, you're trading direct. And then we settle it in near real time. So you're really trading straight from cold storage.
Wow, incredible. Now, another issue, you are running BitGo, and as the head, these are trying times to truly being the head of an organization. How has COVID-19 affected BitGo's operations?
Well, as you can see, I'm working from home, and I'm wearing the uniform that we all wear when we're working from home. We're very fortunate. My heart goes out to those that are actually much more affected by COVID-19, those that can't work. In terms of BitGo, us in the technology and the financial services sector, we're fully remote, and we had planned for business continuity failures as part of what you need to do as a financial services institution. Our clients demanded that years ago, and we've deployed that, and it's working just fine.
Mm-hmm. Now, how has COVID-19, and the ensuing, economic downturn and kind of uncertainty that's brought, how has that affected, institutional trading of digital assets?
Well, so far, I think we haven't seen what's really going to come down the pike. Unfortunately, I think the institutional side of trading is going to be a trailing indicator or a trailing change. Currently, people are trading in high volumes. We initially saw on March 12th a tremendous amount of movement of assets. People needed access of cash, and we saw all markets decline. I said before that Bitcoin and digital assets are not a hedge against market declines; they're a hedge against inflation in the U.S. dollar. So the second effects we've seen from COVID-19 is a tremendous amount of money printing going around globally, and we will see in the next coming months what the impact on Bitcoin that may have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a question on a lot of people's mind. That the government for years, Bitcoin has been pitched as, hey, this is the money, this is the asset that's out of the hands of governments. That governments can't just print it when they want. They don't have control over it. And now governments are printing and just handing away money on obscene numbers. How come we haven't seen the reaction yet from Bitcoin? Will that just take time, or will this not be coming?
Well, I think Bitcoin's still growing. We're still building the market structure to make it so that everyone can have access. Unfortunately, relatively few people have access to Bitcoin. There's a lot of scary things when you change the model. This is going to be one of those things that it's going to take multiple years in order to make it so everyone have access to it, whether that's institutional by way of a bank or a broker or a financial planner, or maybe you're holding it yourself. That's going to take years. And then once it really is usable and available to everybody, it'll grow pretty fast. This is a point in time where we may start to see that accelerate. So we're optimistic for that in 2020, and we'll see what comes.
Mm-hmm. Now, you famously got your start in securing digital assets by keeping them on an offline laptop hidden under your couch. Your techniques have obviously advanced from then. But what advice would you give to a viewer at home who is hodling onto less than a Bitcoin that kind of wants to keep it safe?
Well, if it's less than the Bitcoin, I mean, it's use a hardware wallet and you'll be fine. Make sure that you have some instructions left for your family should something happen to you. I think one of the biggest challenges of security is not like the hacks and things that we're most worried about, but actually even just the basics of life. You can lose that device, your house can burn down, your heirs may not know what to do with that device should you pass on. So you need to think about business continuity. As we move forward, that Bitcoin is going to go from $7,000 today to $25,000 to $100,000. At some point, that's a meaningful amount of money to you, and you might want to consider enlisting somebody's help with that security and continuity.
Mm-hmm. Now, how about a whale who's holding, a lot more Bitcoin? Would you tell them to skip that first step and just go directly to the professional help, or even whales, if they know what they're doing, they could hold it on by themselves?
Well, it's a highly technical world, and it is possible to do these things by yourself. One of the great things about digital assets is it puts individuals and banks at the same level playing field. So we all get to participate on the network equivalently. Which is what's so fantastic about this. At the same time, if you're sitting on a large amount of asset, you probably want to put that with some custodians, and you may want to split it up so that you have some access, on your own, dependent on what may happen for you individually, and you can also have some that's stored with a custodian or two. It's pretty basic. Any single point of failure that you may have, you want to eliminate that from your personal life or from your institutional providers.
Mm-hmm. Now, you did mention that. There are hacks and things, and life just happens. But one big one that keeps on coming up is SIM swapping. Does SIM swapping worry you, and what is BitGo doing to counteract that threat?
Yeah, so BitGo stopped supporting any connection to your phone as part of your security, 4 years ago, quite some time ago. It's clear that the phone companies are not designing their access policies around security, especially not security of large amounts of money. So the simple answer is you need to not have your email, you need to not have your digital asset tied in any way to your phone. And make sure that you remove all of the backup recovery options that default email providers tend to use. They look for easy ways to restore your account if you lose your password, and tying it to your phone number is easy. You got to not do that. It is simply not the secure way to go. This is so insidious it's part of the reason why individuals and institutional investors and fiduciaries need to use custodians. It's just a hard thing to manage all of these different threat vectors as a mere mortal.
Mm-hmm. So then, as a custodian, then what is a secure method between the customer and you guys, if not for a two-step verification through the phone?
Oh, we use independent hardware keys. So we use YubiKeys, a number of other devices. For large transactions, we actually use video ID. All of our clients are known to us. We will literally call them up at any time to verify if we have like a large transaction that's being requested. We can also use a number of other standard risk mitigating factors. We can know if this is a IP address we've seen before, an address we've seen before. Multi-sig, of course, is the last component, multiple approvers. So we use a whole variety of ways to verify this transaction is legitimate, and it's pretty solid.
Mm-hmm. Now, those are ways of protecting the funds from the hackers, but recently there's a story kind of going a different way. As a company that holds digital assets for others, what's your take on the Justin Sun story where he convinced a number of exchanges to use their customers' coins to actually vote for him in that Steam takeover? Now, not specifically that story, but what's your opinion on the idea of these custodians who are holding vast amounts of assets? Some of them have voting power. What's the role there of the custodian in terms of those votes?
Yeah, so you can chop up digital assets into a couple of different types. There's the store of value, like Bitcoin. That's the one that's most famous and popular. That's where we're securing value. It doesn't have on-chain governance the way some of the other protocols do. Other protocols are emerging that are going to do more and more of on-chain governance, voting, et cetera. And the custodians are going to play a central role in helping with that process. So we acquired a company called Hedge a year ago that helps with some of the staking functionality that we do. These chains tend to be a little bit more early stage. Only less than 5% of assets are staked today globally. There's more that's coming, but it's an emerging technology, and the custodians are going to have to play a central role. But you're going to have to define very clearly what those custodians are doing on behalf of the users and make sure the users are all opted in. And I think that's going to trigger potentially a fair amount of regulation and monitoring that has to happen to make sure that everything's being done exactly as the end holder of the asset wants it to.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of regulation, the story just broke right before we came on this interview that Facebook's Libra, which was originally planning to have a Libra coin backed by a basket of various currencies, that they recently to appease regulators, they recently announced that they're shifting focus and instead are going to launch a bunch of different Libra stablecoins, each backed or pegged to a single currency. So a US dollar Libra, a British pound Libra, and then with eventual plans for a kind of Libra that's backed by a combination of those stablecoins. Either way, I'm not sure, have you got a chance to read that report yet, or are you up to date on that?
I read the report yesterday that came out, which was pretty much a vote against stablecoins from the government side. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world about what role digital assets play long term. And of course, governments tend to be a little bit slower and it takes them a little bit longer to kind of process things. There's rules and regulations that we apply to money, and they should be applied equally across pretty much all types of money. Some people in the digital asset space are looking to avoid that. I think that's not going to work long term. But the stablecoins play a fascinating and I think integral role with where digital assets are going. It's one of the easiest bridges that you have between fiat and digital. In my opinion, the ability to move money around the planet 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is an unstoppable force. We have a global economy and we need a global financial system to match that global economy. So there's no doubt that there's value here. And for that reason, digital assets are going to emerge. Governments are still trying to figure out what it means to them. Companies like Libra are doing, I think, great work in helping pioneer putting that together in a way that's going to be both usable for end users and also compliant for governments. But these chapters are being written as we speak, and we're going to figure out how it works in the real world this year. Mm-hmm.
And especially very timely, as with the government's $2.2 trillion bailout. They're actually having trouble with the actual consumer and actually getting that money. People are waiting for checks. The small businesses, or some small businesses, are having trouble actually receiving that money. Do you think that this kind of major event is showing maybe some in the government that there might actually be a good reason for a CBDC?
The CBDCs are coming around, and I think actually the main reason the governments are interested is they're kind of all competing. They don't want to be outrun by another government. So, the U.S. is very fortunate to be the reserve currency of the world. I think most Americans have a hard time appreciating exactly how valuable that is to our economy here today. And so, of course, there's other countries that would like to displace that because it can help their economies in significant ways. And for that reason, the governments are going to compete to pull together a CBDC and see who can do it the fastest, most effectively. At the same time, all the governments move relatively slowly. I think they will roll out with trial periods in certain sectors. We'll see how that grows. But they're coming. They're not going to ignore this because they don't want to be outflanked by somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Well, don't worry. We'll remember who was first in the game, even once the governments come in. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. And for all our viewers at home, if you want more on blockchain, tech, and crypto news, make sure to check us out at blocktv.com.
Watch us on Amazon Fire TV and Roku.